Hello, everyone. Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. Talking about tinctures, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about a bunch of stuff. It's just a lot of the same stuff I've already talked about. I have a whole playlist that I link to in the description box about tinctures and extracts. And over the years, since I started my channel, I've changed the way I make them. But you're always going to get people that think they're better, smarter, or whatever. And maybe some of it's just based on what they've learned, and that's fine. Because we're all learning stuff along the way, but there's always somebody that wants to correct you. Or there's people that simply have questions. So I just like to kind of touch on this stuff again. And a lot of it is for the sake of encouraging people, because just like with the sourdough bread, or like with what was the other thing? I was just thinking about something else. It seems like everybody wants to take something that winemaking, something that doesn't have to be that complicated, and then use all these big fancy words and all this, precision about detail. Oh, I was talking about soap making, like last week, same thing there. And they want to just, I think a lot of it is people are just trying to, maybe people are really passing on, this is what I do, and that's fine. But sometimes I think people are just trying to kind of inflate their own ego by the way they talk. And not everyone. But the problem with that is it scares people away from the simplicity of just doing stuff. I feel pretty certain when people first started making tinctures, they weren't all about, okay, well, you got to have this exact weight of this particular herb, and you got to make sure that then if you add this herb, you get this exact weight, and then measure out this much of whatever your solvent is. Oh yes, and only use vodka. There's somebody that seems to think you can only use vodka as a solvent to make your tinctures, which is 100% incorrect. But if that's all you want to use, that's totally fine. So at any rate, that was my first point. It does not have to be complicated. When I first started making my own extracts, tinctures, I just threw stuff in a jar and poured vodka over it, and then later started coming up with my own solvent mixes. My favorite one to this day that I came up with somewhere along the way after starting my YouTube channel was going part wine, part honey, sometimes a 50-50 blend, sometimes maybe 75% homemade wine and 25% honey. The honey helps add a little flavor, and especially when you're talking about my pain relief extract, that was really where I kept experimenting with all kinds of different things to try to make it taste better. And doing the 50-50 blend for the pain relief extract was the best because it just gave it the best flavor. It helped cover up a lot of that bitterness of the feverfew and more. And homemade wine tastes better than vinegar for an extract. Vinegar and honey isn't so bad, a 50-50 blend, also known as an oxymel. But just plain vinegar, especially when you're talking about an extract that has feverfew in it, is nasty. It is beyond nasty. I mean, I would suffer it down if I needed it, but it was terrible. So through the years, I kept experimenting. Vodka, so you can use vodka. Here's the reason I think a lot of people don't realize why most people use vodka. Most people use vodka because it's one of the cheapest spirits that you can get. I personally do not use Everclear. Some people swear by it. I don't, and I won't. I won't use it partly because of the high expense, even though I know you only need a tiny bit of it, but also because there's a little bit of concern there that it could damage certain herbs. And so I'm just like, I don't need it. People will go on about one reason people like Everclear is because, well, it's also got, an extra long shelf life or whatever. Well, you know what? So does vodka, so does wine, so does vinegar, and so does honey, as long as things are properly stored. So I personally just don't find it to be that big of a deal. Glycerin is another one. The thing with glycerin is you do need to make sure you mix it with something like, well, a lot of people will do a water glycerin mixture, which I agree that can really lower the shelf life, because not only, because you're taking the glycerin, you're mixing with water, but it's only like 3 parts glycerin to 1 part water. It's not a 50-50 blend. But what I would do to make sure, if you're looking for an alcohol-free one, instead of using water, use vinegar. I switched to honey. I came up with that idea. I don't know if anyone else ever did it, because I'm like, Why are we using glycerin? Wouldn't honey be safer and healthier? And sure enough, it works great. And it is a natural preservative as well. But yeah, you don't have to do something exactly the way somebody else does. If you feel better about measuring out every single little weight and using whatever the top herbalist tincture making person uses, do that. If that makes you feel better. But never be afraid to learn something new or to experiment on your own. Because here's the other reason I switched to doing mostly homemade wine. Not only does it taste better than like all of the above, it's practically free. It saves me so much money over using anything like rum, Everclear, whiskey, bourbon. You can use any of these, and you can use any spirit to make a tincture. So yeah, homemade wine, totally practically free because I'm making it either from my homegrown apples, mostly from my grapes, but a lot of times I'll also even add berries from my garden because I guess, or blackberries, because we can get a ton of blackberries. I get a ton of currants. So that saves me a lot of money. And then mixing it with honey just makes it a little bit nicer. And especially if it's something you're going to use for fighting any kind of infection, well, that raw honey's got its own benefits that it's adding to that extract. You'll have people that will also give you recipes. You know, whatever book you get on extract and tincture making. And some people think they have to follow those recipes, like the certain blend of herbs, 100% to the exact. And that's fine if that's what you choose to do. You feel better about that, especially if you're new to extract making. But I've never done that. Now, I've looked at a couple people's recipes to just see what kind of herbs they use for a specific blend to help with something. I'm like, okay, well, I have that and I have that, but I also know this herb is good for that too. I'm going to mix it my own way because that's how I roll. I like doing things my own way based on what I already have handy and, you know, what I'm already growing or what I already have in my pantry. And so I create my own different extracts for various things. And I do experiment with different blends to see what I like better, just like I've been doing with the pain remedy for years. I've used different types of blends. One of the last things I added to it was the valerian leaf, which really kind of took it over the top at it really helping to, you know, calm the nerves and kill the pain, no matter what kind of pain it was. So don't be afraid to mix and match your herbs, but it is also good to know a little bit about them and how best they might work together. Honestly, I hardly ever pay attention to that. I just know, well, this herb's good for pain, this herb's good for pain, that herb's good for pain, and so is this herb. Let's just try mixing them all together and see what happens. The scary thing some people may have is, oh, but what if blending them can cause a bad reaction? This is just absolute opinion. This is the only fact it's based on is my own experience and how I've never had an issue with mixing herbs other than maybe the flavor blend was terrible. Or maybe it just didn't work as well as this blend. I think the number one thing you have to concern yourself is if you're throwing in any herb, it doesn't matter if you're using it in a blend or you're using it straight. Is it possible you're allergic to it? Are you on any kind of medication that it could have a reaction to? Yes, there are certain herbs out there that can kind of contradict each other or maybe even have a bad reaction when taken together. But my personal opinion, again, coming back to the opinion, that is extremely rare. But a lot of people don't have a problem taking this drug, that drug, that drug, and that drug, every drug that the doctor gives them, even though there's never been a single study on a lot of these to show whether or not they should be taken in tandem. In most cases, there's no study done. A doctor says, oh, well, here's this medication for that because you're having this issue. Oh, you're having this issue as a side effect from this drug. Okay, then take this drug to counteract that side effect. And oh, now here's another side. Okay, now take this. So you're taking all these drugs to counteract all these different side effects when maybe you would have been better off not taking any of them. And so what's happening is people are getting sicker and sicker and sicker. It's more food for thought, which is pun kind of intended. When you're cooking a Mexican dish, an Italian dish, or any dish where you're using all kinds of different culinary herbs, well, first of all, pretty much every culinary herb or spice I can think of has medicinal properties. We don't seem to have a problem mixing and matching those different herbs and spices into the dishes we're making. You're making something Italian, you're typically going to use one or more of the following: oregano, rosemary, fennel. What am I leaving out? Basil, and garlic, of course. Don't forget the garlic, for crying out loud. Blend them all together. It's like, I think this needs more garlic. Maybe it needs a little more oregano. We don't freak out about, am I going to have some kind of crazy reaction by mixing all these culinary herbs together? No. Who does that? Nobody thinks about that. The only person that's going to think about that is someone who knows they're allergic to one of those ingredients. That, again, my opinion. I have never taken an herbal course. I never try to pretend I'm the person that is the end all, know all, be all when it comes to herbs. I am just a simple gal who decided one day she was going to start taking her health in her own hands and start learning as I go. Start learning a little bit about this, especially when I knew it was like, let's get off these thyroid medications and learn about what herbs, what foods, and whatnot are good to help boost the thyroid, because we both had hypothyroidism, apparently, and what things we can cut out that may slow down the thyroid. I didn't try to make any special thyroid replacement, medication. It was just about, a lot of it was about changing our diet and adding more of what we needed and taking away what we didn't. And that's why I have videos out on that. Along with that, I'll get people that will think that I have some special magical remedy, and they want to know, what is it? What's the dosage? Sorry, I don't have that. I don't have that. That's not typically how healing your body and getting off medication works. In some cases, yes, but in most cases, it's about finding, what does my body need more of, and what should I be cutting out? It's not about trying to replace a medication with an herb. And it's an understandable thought, because we think, okay, we have to take this medication for this, then maybe we can take an herb for this instead. But most generally, that's not how it works. And the other thing is remembering everybody's different. So what you should be taking and using, and what amounts you should be taking and using of any herb, any tincture, any extract, is going to be entirely up to you. And you're going to have to figure that out on your own. People can give you ideas like, oh, take a teaspoon. If you're making it with Everclear, you might only need a couple of drops. If you're making it with vodka, you might need a teaspoon. If you're making it with homemade wine and honey, you might need a tablespoon, maybe even a whole shot. It's going to depend on you. It's going to depend on the herb. It's going to depend on the solvent. There's all these different things. And I never tell anybody, this is exactly how much you need to take and how many times a day you should take it. You kind of got to make yourself your own guinea pig, but the safest way to do that is to start small. Start with a couple of drops, no matter what solvent you use, and work your way up from there. As long as you're not feeling anything negative from taking it, but keep working your way up until you find, okay, this is the amount I need to take that actually works for me, and I'm not having any negative side effects as a result. I brought both my husband's and my blood pressure down with hawthorn berries. I refuse to take prescription for something I can manage. Absolutely. Something you can manage naturally. Most people who are on high blood pressure medicine do not need to be on it, and actually would be better off not taking it. And I say most people because I know there's always going to be those people that may still need it. But in most cases, it's, first of all, I've preached on this so many times. I have videos on this, that to have the medical community set a standard of, this is what everybody's blood pressure needs to be all the time, even when you're going into the doctor to have your blood pressure tested and you're very stressed out, which that's going to naturally make your blood pressure rise, because now you're in fight or flight. Your blood pressure is meant to go up. It needs to go up when you're in fight or flight. So when you go to the doctor and you're getting a checkup and they're checking your blood pressure, wow, it's blah, 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 blah. It's like, yeah, because I'm stressed, doctor, because I knew you were going to tell me that, because I knew I couldn't just calm myself down. All throughout the day, your blood pressure does this, depending on your activities, what's on your mind, what's going on in your life. The concern is if it's chronically high, no matter what you're doing. That's where the concern is. Okay. But to say that everybody's blood pressure should be exactly this is absolutely wrong. So they're saying that somebody who weighs 500 pounds and is 6'5" should have the same blood pressure as a 5-foot woman who might weigh 100 to 130 pounds. What? Wrong. We don't do that with anything else. So it's not a one size fits all. There was actually 5 points. Okay. 5 points altogether, but the last one is more just to remember, you don't have to tincture everything. Just because somebody else is tincturing everything, if you would prefer to take something in the form of a tea or a capsule, that's okay. You don't have to tincture everything you grow. I don't tincture everything. I have certain things I do tincture, just like, making the pain extract, making the muscle relaxer, deep sleep extract, which really doesn't get used that much. And my antibiotic extracts, I have a couple different ones I make. And then I have my elderberry syrup, and then my elderberry tincture, which is elderberry spice tincture. Those are the main ones I make. I don't really tincture much else. I've tinctured other things or extracted other things like turkey tail mushroom, and I tend to forget about those. You got to do what's best for you and pay attention to your body. Listen to it. If you're having a reaction to something, it might mean that you need to quit that and try something else. And this is where the blends, it might be safer to start with a single herb at a time. If they're new herbs and you've never used them for anything, try it like maybe in a tea first, see if you have a reaction to it. And then, then try another one. And then if you don't have a reaction to those two, try blending them together and see what you think and see if you have a reaction to that. That's the safest way really to go about it, but I hardly ever work that way. I just am like, hey, this sounds like a good idea. Let's try it. I do not sell any of my homemade medicinal extracts, none of them. I just don't do that because it's a lot of it's for the same reasons as I said earlier, that what each person's going to need can be very different from person to person. So I don't sell any of that. It's up to people to, take what I've learned so far. If you're listening to me, go to some other channels that are doing this, hear what they have to say, and, read or watch some of their recipes or their own testimonies about what worked for them, and just try things, because it's super, super easy to make your own teas, your own extracts. It's super easy. You just have to know what works best for you.